In this video, I'm going to introduce you to special layers like type, shape, smart, and adjustment layers. And we will also learn how to move layers from one document to another, how to rasterize these special layers, and also how to use layer filtering. So to create a type layer, you will need to use the type tool from the toolbar. And you will be able to use different versions of this tool, but most of the time you will need the horizontal type tool. Remember, if you want to show these multiple options, you have to right click or click and hold on a tool. So all you need to do once you have the type tool selected is to click anywhere on the canvas and start typing. So I'm just going to type in Photoshop for this example. Once you have your text, you can select it and make it bigger by selecting a higher point size. Or you can also scrubby change it by click and dragging the icon for the font size. Of course, you can then use the move tool as well to move this text layer around, because notice that we have a new layer created for the type. So that's the type layer, and that's how you create this special type of layer. So if you want to edit the text, you can double click on the T icon here in the layers panel. That will automatically select the text within that layer. And of course, you can change all kinds of different things. The color is here, and we can change the color, for example, very quickly. You can also do other edits, like changing the font itself, but I'm going to talk about these in more detail in another video. For now, I would like to also make sure you know that if you just click on this tick here on the top, that means you accept the changes to your text, or you can cancel the changes. I'm just going to click on this to accept the color change. So every time you use the type tool and you click on an empty part of your canvas, it will automatically create a new type layer. The same way if you use shape tools, which are here not far from the type tool, they will also create automatically a new shape layer. So if I choose the rectangle tool and I click and drag, that's going to create a default rectangle, which has no fill, just a black stroke around it. But you see, this is the new layer here in the layers panel. And it indicates that this is a shape layer with that little icon next to the thumbnail or on top of the thumbnail. The same thing would happen if I use the ellipse tool, for example. Click and drag, I can create an ellipse, which will automatically be called ellipse 1 in my layers panel. So these are shape layers, and they have their own setting as well within the properties panel. And then there is the smart objects, which you can actually create from anything within Photoshop. But to show you an example, I'm going to place in an image by using File, Place, Embedded, and we will pick one of these images. So let's just place that in. I'm going to click on Accept, but before I do that, I want to resize this image quickly. If you want to resize without messing up the proportions of an placed image, you can just click on the chain here on the top, and then you can drag it down using one of the corner points. Don't use the side points, because that still will distort the image. Just use the corner points. Clicking on the image itself, you can move it around, and then when you are happy with the size of it, you can accept it by pressing Enter, or click on the Commit Transform icon there on the top. So the image we placed in is automatically becoming a smart object, and the way I can tell again is by looking at the layers thumbnail. Has that little icon which indicates that this is a smart object. I'm going to talk about smart objects also in much more detail. So for now, all I want you to remember is these are also not normal layers that you would create as an empty layer. These are smart objects, a special type of layer. There is actually a preference with which you can decide whether you want the images placed to become smart objects or not. It will be under the Preferences General, or Edit Preferences General if you are a PC user. And here you can see always create smart objects when placing. That's the option you have to turn off if you want incoming images to become normal layers and not smart objects. Once again, the advantages of smart objects I'm going to explain in a separate video. So far, it's enough to know where this option is and that smart objects are different to normal layers. So there's one last type of special layer called adjustment layer, which you can create either from this little icon here at the bottom, which will give you a list of all the different type of adjustment layers, or you can go to the window menu, choose adjustments, and that will open up the adjustments panel. Now, just like with any other panels, this can be moved anywhere. Maybe above here, the layers panel is where normally it is. And then you can see icons for all these adjustment layers. And what I would like to use now is the black and white adjustment layer. So once I click on that, that again creates a new layer. And as long as that's on top of all the other layers, everything will be turned black and white. So the way this works, if I move it down one below the image, then the image won't get affected by this adjustment anymore because the adjustment layer is underneath that layer. If I move it all the way down, even below the text, then the text again won't get affected because now only the background layer is underneath the black and white adjustment layer. Also notice that whenever you have an adjustment layer selected, the properties panel will show you additional features or options for that current adjustment. Let me select one of my shape layers, in this case the rectangle layer, and from the properties panel, I'm going to choose a color for that layer. And then I'm going to select the ellipse layer and also choose a fill color for that other layer, like that. Now, the properties panel is available in Photoshop CC, but you won't be able to do this in previous versions. So if you have an older version of Photoshop, you have to double click on the thumbnail of a shape layer and then choose the color there. Once you have a fill color applied, you can also use this way of changing the color here in Photoshop Creative Cloud. So if I pick another color, you see it will update on the shape. So as long as you have a fill color already, you can use this technique by double clicking on the thumbnail and changing the color like that. When you have the color picker open, you can even click on the image in the background to sample colors from that, which is also quite useful. So just to make sure you understood, the adjustment layer can be moved around within the layer structure, and whatever falls underneath it will be affected, and whatever is on top of it won't get affected by it. I'm going to talk a lot about adjustment layers in separate videos. So for now, I just wanted you to understand these type of special layers. So we talked about text layer, which we have here, or type layer. Then we have shape layers. We have adjustment layers and also smart objects. Now, once again, in Photoshop Creative Cloud, we have layer filtering options. So in case you only want to see pixel layers, for example, you can turn this option on, which in this case will only show our background layer here in the layers panel. So you won't see any of the other layers. That doesn't mean it will hide the other layers, just simply that you won't see them listed in the layers panel. So if I turn that off, I can see them again. If I click on this icon here, I will only see all the adjustment layers in my layer structure. Then the same again with type layers or shape layers or smart objects. And you can even have multiple options on. So that way you can very quickly isolate and filter for specific type of layers. This will become very useful once you have loads of different layers in a document and you want to quickly find some of the types of layers and make changes to only those. Of course, you can do filtering not just by kind of layers, but also by the name of layers. So if I'm looking for, let's say, ellipses, I can start typing that and it will immediately filter for all layers, including this in their name. And you have also effect, mode, attribute, and so many other options here, which I won't go into detail for now. I just wanted to make sure you understand that you can filter for layers. And one last and very important thing is that you can turn any special layer into a normal layer. Normal layer we also call pixel layer. So while this ellipse layer is a special vector shape layer, it can be rasterized by right-clicking on it and choosing rasterize layer, which means it won't be a shape layer anymore. If I check the properties panel, you won't see any properties for this layer. So there's no special options for it. The same thing with a type layer. If I have that type selected, we can see that it has all the options here on the top to be able to change the text. We can change the size, the font, and so on and so forth. But if I right click on that layer and choose rasterize type, then it becomes again a normal layer which won't have those options. So this layer, I can't make any changes anymore to the text itself because it became a rasterized pixel layer. And last but not least, I would like to show you how you can move layers between documents. So currently you can see I have multiple documents open, the layers PSD, this untitled document, and the other, which was an image on which I moved or placed another image. So let's say I want to move this image with the C onto my untitled document. So there's two ways of doing it. First of all, you will have to use the move tool and select the layer from the layers panel that you want to move, or command click on it. Remember, that's another way of doing it, or control clicking on PC, which will select the layer automatically. And then you can start dragging the layer all the way up until your mouse hovers over the other documents tab. Don't let go the mouse, then you just move down. You won't see the image, only when you let go, it will appear. And you can see this one is a very big high resolution image, and because it's under the black and white adjustment layer, it automatically turned black and white. But if I were to move this above all the other layers, then of course it will hide everything that was originally here in this composition. So that is one way to move layers between documents. But there's also another way. If you go to the window menu and choose arrange, tile, all vertically or horizontally, you will be able to see all your currently open documents at the same time. That way, if I go into a document and select an image like this one here, I can then drag it over another document to be able to place it in there. I can also drag this now over to this document to be able to place it into that document. And once you are ready moving things around, if you want to concentrate on working on a specific document, you can go to Window, Arrange, and choose Consolidate All to Tabs. Once you selected that, you see we are back to the normal editing mode, and the other two documents are collapsed into tabs. So we can still find them here on the top, but we are concentrating on this specific document. So now we actually know about all the different type of layers that you can create in Photoshop, but we still have to learn how to use layer styles. And that's what I'm going to show you in the next video.